Boom. Here we are.
Here we are again.
New studio, Night Brothers commentary. You may see us here going forward. We're trying it out. We've got the logo behind us, and hopefully this is a little bit of a better feel for especially the tone of today's conversation, which is going to be a change of pace from the 3, 4, 5, 6-part series on the military.
Or any political video that we're going to do in the future.
Yeah. We're going to sidebar into something that I think is just a passionate pastime for both of us. Avengers
Endgame.
Here we go.
Or just the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general.
Yeah, so we figured it's the biggest, event in modern, video
cinema
production.
history, really, when you think about it.
Exactly right. Biggest event in history. The early returns on the box office numbers are showing that its opening weekend is going to be the largest in history by a significant margin. So, yeah, we're excited and we want to kind of chat about it. Matt's got some things here put together. Again, as always, we'll make sure to get the show notes in the link at the bottom of the video so you guys can take a look at what we're talking about. But we just had a nice conversation kind of running through our whole experience of the movie. We went together on opening night, and we're going to dive in. So, Matt, I'll let you start wherever with whatever you want.
So basically, let's just kind of go over the summary of the movie. So here we go.
Yeah.
So Captain Marvel saves Iron Man and Nebula from just floating out in space in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. Then the Avengers, after Iron Man comes back to the Avengers headquarters, they go off to find Thanos at the Garden, which is a planet that Thanos was kind of talking about, like where he wanted to spend his quote unquote retirement after he did the snap.
And it was really Nebula who kind of tipped him off.
Yes.
That she had heard him talk about this place after their work was done, that he was going to go.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he was there.
Yeah. So after that, they basically find him there, and then they find out that Thanos destroyed the Infinity Stones by using the Infinity Stones. And basically Thor just cuts his head off with Stormbreaker.
Stormbreaker gets a pretty nice blow there to Thanos' neck. But that was, that all happened in probably the first 15 or 20 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
So it was really, they addressed that really quickly.
Yeah.
And kind of left the viewers like, okay, now what? And then we saw 5 years later, and it kind of picked up there. So
so essentially Black Widow and Captain America are running the Avengers. Iron Man has kind of left that and had his own family. He has a daughter named Morgan. Basically, he's just kind of chilling out, relaxing, having a nice little retirement. Hawkeye lost his family within the first couple minutes of the movie due to the snap, and basically he becomes his other alter ego in the comics, Ronin, which, and basically he was off in Japan, at least that's when we first find him in the movie, kind of like going off, killing.
Yeah, he was kind of taking out some personal anger on, almost, it was kind of interesting, almost like, I don't know if any of you guys out there are Dexter fans, but almost Dexter style, where he was...
Oh, really? Because I was getting more like Arrow, Oliver Queen vibes.
Okay, well, yeah, that's true. I'm not familiar with Arrow, but I know the Oliver Queen character. I just felt like he was kind of going rogue in the sense that, I'm not going to wait for the law on these people. We know they're bad, and I'm going to take care of them. And so, essentially, that's when Natasha Romanoff finds him, in Japan, and kind of brings him back into the family.
Yeah, so, and kind of before all of that, Bruce Banner is actually revealed to become Professor Hulk.
Yeah, which Matt and I were talking about kind of before this show, that, it's great. I thought it was a really cool character.
Absolutely.
But I would love to see kind of a development story on how that came to be, what all went into, because the last time we had seen Bruce Banner, he was having a really hard time figuring out what was going on with Hulk. He spent almost, 2 years in Thor Ragnarok, they said?
Yeah, but basically from Age of Ultron to Thor Ragnarok, he was basically like, he basically put it as like, he was locked in the trunk.
Yeah.
Which is how he put it.
Yeah, he was Hulk for 2 years, and he was totally totally Hulk. No even sign of Banner.
Yeah.
Until Thor was able
rescued him from the Grandmaster and all that.
Yeah, it's
and
a car. So it was neat to see the Professor Hulk take on that character.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see kind of a story, maybe a Phase 4 film.
Yeah.
And I know you talked about some of the challenges with universal ownership of the character.
I mean that was just when I last heard about it. Maybe that's changed.
Okay.
So I mean, if you know for a fact that that's changed, please let us know in the comments. We would like to have we would love your feedback.
Bottom line, Marvel, please give us a Professor Hulk
story.
Origin story.
A Professor Hulk movie. We would love to see it.
Yeah.
So kind of moving on to Thor. Oh my God, Thor! I just love the direction. I mean, Brad probably doesn't like it all that much. I loved it. I felt like it was the perfect way to go from from Infinity War.
And I'll tell you. So here's why I had a little bit of a challenge with it.
Yeah.
And let's just, for those who maybe haven't seen it or just looking for a summary,
Yeah.
we find Thor in New Asgard.
Yeah.
Basically depressed. Drinking a lot of beer, eating a lot of food with Korg and meat, and basically they're just playing video games all the time, and Thor is fat. He is a fat slob, and unfortunately, I guess, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, he does not lose this slobbery for the entirety of the film. So, we'll touch on this later, but fast forward, he's still going into battle, and he's a fat slob. It was just hard for me to take him seriously. It was not the Thor that I was used to.
That is true.
We can touch on that later.
Yeah,
like
so Captain Marvel is now kind of working with the Avengers, and she's basically going around the entire freaking universe trying to solve all their problems. Because, I mean, like you would expect, I mean...
There's more to the universe than Earth.
Yeah.
And the Avengers have been focused primarily on Earth.
Yeah.
And Captain Marvel's kind of the,
like the spacefaring hero who basically tries to help everybody out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, which makes sense, considering she's easily one of the stronger Avengers.
Yeah.
So,
there's no doubt about it.
But where the plot really kind of kicks in is when Ant-Man comes back from the quantum realm.
Correct. By happenstance of a rat.
Yeah.
Which you'll see if you go see the movie. Basically, a rat kicks in, the device that brings him back from the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Which was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But it had to be one of the, let's call it 14 some odd million scenarios that Doctor Strange saw was this rat. Rat doesn't kick this thing on, none of this happens.
That's true.
So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, so... Basically, Ant-Man comes back, he meets up with the Avengers, he says like, hey, we can use the quantum realm to time travel, so they go back and they reach out to Tony, it's like, hey man, will you come help us? And he's kind of like, no, I'm done with this. But in secret, you find out he's been trying to figure out how to time travel the whole freaking time.
Yeah. And it was really kind of, Tony is now done. He's moved on. He has a daughter. I believe her name's Morgan.
Yeah.
And he's kind of ready for that part of his life and just thankful for what he has. And it was really, it was Pepper Potts who kind of said, you need to do this.
Yeah.
Tony comes to her and says, I figured it out. I figured out time travel.
Yeah.
But I don't, what if I just locked it away? And she goes, no, you can't do that. So it was really her that kind of almost gave him permission to do it.
I mean, that's kind of been the whole theme of her character, really, when you think about it. Because at the end of the day, I mean, she kind of realizes early on that Tony is basically Iron Man.
Yeah.
I mean, he can try to be a father. He can try to be a decent husband. He can try to be a nice, normal human being. But the core thing that makes him who he is Iron Man. Yeah. And I think she's kind of seen that probably at least since Iron Man 2, in my opinion.
And they really pay that off at the end, and we'll get to that. But I think you're absolutely right with the way her kind of reaction to everything plays out.
Yeah.
So kind of moving on. Basically, what ends up happening is that
everybody basically travels back in time to collect all the other Fanding stones through via the quantum realm and the Pym particles.
Yeah, so they basically set it up in the sense that they're going to go back in time to specific places where they know the stones are.
Yeah.
And they're all going in. Now, a caveat to that is they only have a limited amount of Pym particles. Yeah. So they basically got
one shot to try to make it work.
To make it work, exactly.
So, yeah, so Iron Man, Ant-Man, and Captain America all go to New York. Ant-Man and Iron Man try to get the Space Stone. And unfortunately they fail, and Loki from the first Avengers movie ends up taking the Space Stone and escapes.
Which is interesting.
Because now that kind of leads into the Loki TV show that's probably going to come out with the Disney streaming service. So.
Because the way the time travel's set up, he's on a completely different timeline in history.
Yeah.
He's alive on a new timeline.
Yeah.
With that stone.
Yeah.
The Tesseract, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, and Captain America tries to get the Mind Stone, which does happen. And I kind of loved how they referenced the Hydra version of Captain America from the comics.
Yeah.
Where basically he
is an agent of Hydra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they kind of referenced that when he kind of like was it Jasper Sitwell he leans it to? Was it Crossbones? Okay.
No, I think it was
it the guy with the glasses?
It was the guy with the glasses.
Yeah, that's Jasper Sitwell. So
okay.
he basically just kind of leans into Jasper Sitwell and says, "Hail Hydra."
Yeah, and
I mean, the original scene, I was kind of like thinking, "Oh boy, are they gonna do another Winter Soldier where he's like, before we get started, is anyone gonna want to get out?"
Yeah.
I know that's where my mind was going, and then he just says "Hail Hydra," and I'm like, "Ooh, okay."
But it was doubly the payoff because not only does he do the Hail Hydra, then he meets himself.
Yeah.
Then Captain America meets Captain America from that timeline, and gives you, kind of his saying, if you will.
I can do this.
I can do this all day,
and so he's like, "I know."
So you get a really sweet little action scene there of Captain America v Captain America, where ultimately. The present day does best the past Captain America.
Yeah.
It was a great scene with a lot of great little tidbits there for MCU fans.
Yeah. So kind of moving on. I mean, the Hulk also goes back to New York to try to get the Time Stone from the Ancient One.
Yep.
And basically, they kind of have a long conversation about like how we're moving how we're moving the Infinity Stones could potentially damage the timelines.
Well, it was really the Ancient One who set up for the audience how time travel was going to work.
Yeah.
And not that it would, by altering time and going back in time, they weren't going to alter the present day life of a person. They were just going to create a completely separate timeline in the sphere of this whole universe, essentially. And that's where I think, looking at the Doctor Strange movie, where they talk about those time loops and things, I think that's what they're talking about here, is that you start messing with time and it creates these different branches in time. Yeah. And that was a conversation that Professor Hulk had to get through to convince the Ancient One, essentially, to hand over the stone, for lack of a better way of phrasing it.
So once Iron Man, Ant-Man, and Captain America all meet up after they got the stones or lack thereof in the case of Iron Man and Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Iron Man and Captain America time travel again to 1970 or the 1970s to go to Camp Lehigh, where both Hank Pym and Howard Stark are now currently working for S.H.I.E.L.D.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was where Captain America started, right? That was where Steve Rogers went to Camp Lehigh as an infantryman, I believe, and that was where kind of the whole Captain America story started.
Yeah, essentially, but kind of like 30 years later.
Oh, okay. It was 30. So they were back.
Yeah, it's the same base.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
same
what I mean.
base.
Yeah.
But like just in a different time period.
Yeah.
So basically, they go to that time period in order to recover the Space Stone and get more Pym particles, which they do.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, Captain America sees Peggy Carter.
Yep.
So, and when he's kind of like viewing her for the window, if you will, he's kind of like, am I missing out on life or something?
Right.
Like,
they were kind of foreshadowing some stuff that we're going to touch on later here. But that was a neat tidbit that they kind of brought those two characters back together for a moment in time.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you have Tony Stark, who runs into his father, who is working there on that base. Yeah. And I thought their dialogue was really well set up because it was kind of...
I mean, it's basically kind of like setting up closure for Iron Man, because at the end of the day, I mean, he's kind of like... I mean, he's now a dad, as we've mentioned, and I don't know where I'm going with this.
No, but Matt, that was the exact word I was thinking, was closure. It was a closure-type conversation. that, you know, Tony is basically taking on a persona of a fake person. I can't even remember the name he gives him.
Yeah.
Gives his dad some name because he's just trying to get out of there with the Tesseract, basically.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was a nice conversation that his dad got to kind of touch on some things. Well, I think he was expecting. His wife was expecting. Tony's mom was expecting Tony, and you know, it really, you could tell by the way that they left that conversation that Tony finally kind of felt at peace. Because that relationship with his parents had always kind of been, especially his father, a little bit of a point of sorrow for him.
Point of sorrow and tension. Really.
Yeah. So it was a nice scene. Ultimately, what ends up happening is that Captain America gets the Pym particles.
Yeah.
Iron Man's able to get his hands on the Tesseract, and then they jump back into the present timeline. With the Pym particles.
So kind of moving on.
Yeah.
Thor and Rocket go to Asgard during Thor 2, the Dark World.
Yeah.
To get the Reality Stone away from what's her name? Jane Foster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Rocket essentially removes the ether or the Reality Stone from Jane Foster, while Thor goes off and talks to his mom.
Right.
Kind of gets a little bit of closure from that.
Yeah, it was another very much a closure conversation. She had some great lines. You know, Thor's still fat and slob, and he's just not in a good place, and she's really kind of giving him some just nice counsel through, and Rocket's able to secure it. So they both, that was a successful mission, both in terms of the dialogue Thor had and capturing the...
And he also reclaims Mjolnir. Which will become important later. Yes.
He's able to bring that back to the present timeline with him.
So moving on again.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to Black Widow and Hawkeye. They go on to Vormir during around the time frame of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Yep.
To get the Soul Stone. So basically, they meet the Red Skull, who leads them to the Soul Stone, and basically he kind of gives them the same speech that he gave Thanos in Infinity War.
And it was an interesting scene because, you know, they were both going back and forth on who was going to end up being sacrificed. And really, as an audience member, I was left in suspense. I didn't know. I could have easily seen them going both ways because Agent Romanoff she actually had a lot of dialogue and a really strong character development at the beginning of the movie, sort of pulling all this together. Whereas Hawkeye was out being Ronin and just kind of doing his own thing, and it would have made sense to me
to kill off Hawkeye, because at the end of the day, it's kind of like his way of not only atoning for his mistakes, but also just kind of like, I can potentially be with my family again.
Yeah.
Assuming that we potentially fail.
Right. And to that point, you know, also, if my memory serves me, he was the one who originally had a mission to kill Romanoff and chose not to. You know, way back in the timeline. So what ended up happening was they basically fought literally to the death. And you get to the point where you think that it's going to be Hawkeye, and Romanoff kind of just bests him. Right as he's trying to sacrifice himself, she basically does a complete, you know, jump over, shoot him down, and they're in this hanging moment. And I don't know. I thought it was well done, but I was still shocked to see Romanoff go away. Now here's the thing about that, though. The Soul Stone, I still think she could potentially be alive in the stone.
Kind of like how
Baby Gamora was.
in Infinity War. So that is a possibility. That is a possibility.
I don't know how they're going to make that. I'm just saying if they wanted to go that route.
They could certainly try.
Yeah. So
anyway, moving on again. Basically, War Machine and Nebula go to Morag during the same time period to get the Power Stone. But unfortunately, Nebula gets captured by her past self.
Time out. Before we get to that, I loved that scene. Because it was the opening scene from Guardians of the Galaxy, where you had Quill basically just doing Quill, and, you know, with the lizards, but you got to see it from a little bit of a different perspective, and it was just kind of funny because he's going through his deal, and they are able to secure the stone. But as you said, it was interesting, and I think it shows you that in this time travel, digital connection is different than anything else because that's how Nebula was able to connect both timelines, essentially. It was quite strange, but long story short, War Machine gets out with the Power Stone, and Nebula is
captured, and basically the Nebula from the past basically kind of like removes the future pieces from her armor, steals the pen particles, and uses that to transport everybody, including Thanos, on the ship.
So we see Thanos in the Guardians of the Galaxy 1 time period. That's where we go back to. That's the version of Thanos we get. So at that point, that's Thanos with no stones. He has none of the Infinity Stones, but he's able to use this connection with Nebula to essentially, well, really not him. She did it. She was the one that wanted to prove herself to Thanos and brought him through the quantum realm back to the present day timeline. And that's where really the final act begins.
So basically, after all that happens, Iron Man essentially creates the new gauntlet. Hulk uses it to undo the snap.
Which works.
Which works.
We get that via a phone call from Hawkeye's wife. It works. We know it happened. Which again is kind of foreshadowing to some of the Doctor Strange
stuff. So basically Thanos comes out from the quantum realm, gets resizes back to the original shape, and then blows the out of Avengers headquarters. And honestly, I thought Ant-Man was dead. Because Ant-Man's just kind of looking out the window and he's like, I think we did it. And then boom.
It was like they gave you maybe 2 minutes of, oh my God, we reversed the snap. How great is this? And then all of a sudden, no, it was terrible, and it was terrible fast.
Everything just went
so basically you had all the present day timeline Avengers scattered. So you had Hawkeye kind of doing his own thing for a while. The Hulk and War Machine
and Rocket were trapped.
And Ant-Man is able to eventually pay that off and save them. Iron Man, I don't even know where Iron Man ended up.
He kind of ended up somewhere out in the rubble. Along with Captain America and
Thor. And those three kind of start the initial
fight with Thanos.
Which was awesome.
Except
for Fat Thor. I could not take Fat Thor seriously in the battle. And I think, I said this to you earlier before we came on the show, I think the reason they did it in part was to kind of build up Captain America and Iron Man because this was their show.
It really was their show.
And I was glad they did it that way. And I feel like the Thor that we saw in Infinity War was a lesser Thor than we saw in Endgame. Just because of all that he had gone through. It just wasn't...
You mean the other way around? Like the Thor in Endgame was a little bit lesser than everything...
That's what I thought I said. The Infinity War Thor was just a better version of Thor than we saw in Endgame. The Endgame was a lesser version, and I think that was to kind of give the spotlight to Captain America and Iron Man, which was awesome because I'll let you talk about what they did with Captain America.
So, if anyone knows, if you've read the comics, then you know what's happening next.
And it
was so badass.
It was just badass. I think the whole theater just erupted.
Me included.
It was hard not to. I got the hair standing up on my arm. I was like, here we go. And you just get a great, just classic superhero combat scene with those three who have really been the drivers of the franchise. Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America. Going at Thanos while kind of all these other things are going on. But it does, Thanos, even without the stones, shows you just how powerful he is.
He really is.
Because he had him against the ropes.
He really did.
And then...
honestly, I thought he was actually going to struggle a little bit, but turns out he really didn't. So kind of moving on from the fight now. We kind of move on to Nebula and Gamora. That's also a really big part of the story, because the Nebula from the present day eventually manages to convince the Gamora from the past timeline to actually side with the good guys and then both of them end up killing the Nebula from the past.
Right. And then that kind of sets us up. So there's all these different things going on. You have the Hulk and Rocket and War Machine that are struggling to get out.
Yeah.
You have Hawkeye kind of doing his own thing. At this point in time, he's the one with the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yes.
He's because when the explosion happened, the Gauntlet gets lost, so Hawkeye gets his hands on it.
Yeah.
He's kind of running and trying to escape
Yeah.
some of Thanos's. I don't know what they were. I don't remember which. They looked like the same people that came to New York in the original Avengers.
Really, I thought it was more of like the little black dog.
It was somebody bad.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah, he was just trying to.
It was a dark scene. It was hard to. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
He was trying to escape, and then basically you get to the point where Thanos has really beaten them down.
Yeah.
Captain America's shield gets cracked in half.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a payoff to Tony's vision in Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a unique scene to see how that played out.
I mean, at that point, I was like thinking, "Oh no, Captain America's gonna die."
Yeah, because
I mean, and that's one thing Marvel does so well.
Yeah.
I mean, they mislead you so well.
Yeah, and it was we all just kept waiting for it because all this talk with Chris Evans and wanting out of the contract, and this is he's kind of alluded to this whole time.
Yeah.
So I was really waiting for Thanos to kind of finish him.
Yeah.
And then you get another callback line that was just like
Oh my god!
It was the best part of the whole movie for me. It was probably.
I mean, I would say the scene, I would say the overall scene was probably the best part of the movie, but I would say kind of like the ending of it was maybe a little bit better than the start, for me, at least in my opinion. But anyway, Falcon comes back, radios Captain America, and he's like, "Cap, do you read?"
Yeah.
And
does he say on your left?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
He's like, on your left. So he looks over, and you see the Doctor Strange magic.
Yep.
Where everybody is like coming back.
Yeah, everybody that was a victim of the snap, basically Doctor Strange, gets them into the frame, and you see. I mean, I think it was first. It was like
Black
Panther. Yeah, and then we saw who I can't remember who else.
And then it was everybody on Titan, and then
Doctor Strange. Spider-Man comes into the frame. You get Star-Lord in the frame. I mean, it was just like all these characters. Yeah. Bucky comes back.
I mean, even Valkyrie. Maybe even the Valkyries come back.
Valkyrie comes back. Yeah. She never died, did she?
She never really died.
Yeah, but basically everybody from the MCU, all these different, Doctor Strange starts just getting all these people in, and it's like, oh my God! Now we literally
because you see all the good guys lined up and all the bad guys lined up.
Yeah,
and it's like, and then Captain America says the most badass line of the whole series, in my opinion.
Yeah,
in my opinion, and basically he says, "Avengers, assemble!"
Right,
everybody starts charging.
Right, and they had teased that line, I think, at the end of Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was a scene with Vision.
Yeah.
That was the only thing. Vision did not come back.
Yeah, Vision did not come back.
There, because I think there's a little, obviously with the Mind Stone, a little bit of a different dynamic. He was the only one that didn't come back that I can remember. But literally, it was just all out from there. So they gave you an action scene that felt like it was a massive action scene, but you got to see bits and pieces from everybody.
Yeah.
And then
I mean, you got to see the insta-kill function and the Iron Spider suit. That was amazing.
Yeah. And then
you saw Captain Marvel just destroy Thanos' ship by flying right through it.
Well, that was a huge thing because Thanos was gaining some ground.
Yeah, he was at that point.
And Captain Marvel enters the frame not through Doctor Strange, but through she just comes back into the present timeline and destroys the whole ship. Ant-Man goes to Giant Man.
Yeah.
And basically he's responsible for saving Professor Hulk and Rocket and War Machine. The Infinity Gauntlet starts getting passed around a lot.
Because they're trying to get to Ant-Man's van in order to try to go back into the past and return the Infinity Stones back to their rightful places.
Right. Which ends up happening later. You get a really unique scene of Peter Quill, a.k.a. Star-Lord, and Gamora from the previous timeline. So she doesn't know him, and he's looking at her like, oh, I love you. And it was kind of like, she's like, this is it? Really?
And basically hits him in the nuts.
But I think that's going to be a Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or as Guardians of the Galaxy 3 plot
Now, here's the
dynamic.
thing. I personally think that the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie is not going to take place after Endgame. I really don't.
Okay.
I think it's going to take place before Infinity War. And the reason why I say that is because there is a 3-year time jump between Infinity War and Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Okay. Well, Matt, you could be right.
Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
Because you also remember, at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, they had that big ship that was Yondu's.
Yeah.
But when they come in Infinity War, they go back to the Milano.
Okay.
So why would they have a different ship? So to me, that's just kind of that's just like a dead giveaway in my opinion. But
it's possible.
yeah, I think they're all gonna do like a fourth Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but I feel like it's gonna be more of a Thor-oriented movie with the Guardians, because
the only reason that I am going to maybe disagree with you is because I think the next Guardians of the Galaxy is going to include Thor. Because the way they set it up, and they didn't meet Thor until Infinity War.
Yeah. So that's fair. I mean, that is a fair point. But anyway, kind of going back.
Yeah.
Essentially, Thanos eventually does get the gauntlet back.
Yeah.
But
I don't even know how it happened. It was so quick.
Yeah, it was really so quick. So eventually, he gets the gauntlet back. Doctor Strange looks at Iron Man and he just raises his finger like, this is it.
Right.
And basically, Iron Man steals all the Infinity Stones from Thanos.
Right.
To make his own gauntlet.
Yep.
And basically, that sequence goes, I am inevitable.
And
doesn't work.
Yeah, that's from Thanos.
Yeah.
Nothing happens.
Yeah. And then you see Tony with all the stones, and it's like, and I am Iron Man.
Yep.
And basically, he kills Thanos and his entire army.
And it was a really kind of poetic moment.
Absolutely.
You know, the franchise started with Iron Man.
Yeah.
You know, the scene at the news conference where Tony Stark
says like, I am Iron Man.
It was really, you couldn't have written it any better.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's no way you could have wrote it anyway else. You couldn't have done it.
Yeah. So basically, what ends up happening is that, you know, aside from Tony, you know, completes the snap.
Yeah.
Thanos and the army is all dusted essentially. What ends up happening there is that essentially the battle is over.
Yeah.
We find out really quickly that because Iron Man used the snap, that was the end for him. It was, the stones were too powerful for him to do it as a mortal, essentially. So you get some really, you know, touching dialogue between Spider-Man and Iron Man, Pepper Potts and Iron Man. But it was again just a poetic finish, because I think I was still surprised that they ended up killing him.
I was not surprised at all. I knew they were going to do it. I mean, to me, it just felt right to kill him in this movie, because, I mean, it started with him and ended with him.
Yeah.
I mean...
And so basically the latter half of the film, you get a really nice funeral scene.
Yeah.
You get some dialogue between Happy and his daughter Morgan.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of are just closing down the Iron Man arc, if you will.
Yeah.
And then we get into really the final...
I would say the final chapter of the movie, where basically
Yeah.
Captain America goes back, returns all the stones to their appropriate timelines.
Yeah.
But he actually chooses to stay behind in the 70s with Peggy Carter.
Yep.
And basically just live his life.
Right. And they didn't really explain how he got back to the present day timeline.
I just think he lived.
Yeah, but he had to show up in that exact moment. I'm sure there'll be some explanation for it.
Maybe, I don't know.
It was a little odd, but the bottom line was they give you old Cap, essentially. You get the passing of the torch, so to speak, that the shield goes on to Falcon now.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how Phase 4 treats that.
Yeah.
You and I were sitting in the theater. I think we both thought it was going to be Bucky.
I know, because here's the thing. I mean, technically both characters do use the Captain America moniker in the comics.
Yep.
But to me, I just felt like it was probably a little bit more appropriate to have it go to Bucky, because Bucky's been there since the beginning.
Yeah.
For Steve Rogers, so for me, it just felt to me that was the more natural conclusion.
Yeah. That's not what ends up happening.
And that is not what ends up happening.
So that's basically, you know.
And then we're kind of gonna. So I would say after that, Valkyrie becomes the queen of New Asgard.
Yep.
And Thor just decides to join the Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of like we were talking about before.
Yeah.
And you may have a point with that, with having the third Guardians movie like take place after Endgame, which could happen. I mean, I'll admit it's possible, but
Well, it's just interesting because they didn't. At the end of the movie, we have no idea what present day Nebula and post day Gamora are doing.
Yeah.
They just don't touch on that at all.
yeah, they really
So-
don't.
so
Well, here's
I
the
mean-
thing. I mean, the Nebula. I mean, present day Nebula is actually with the Guardians.
Was she on that ship?
Yeah, she was on the
Okay.
ship.
All right. Okay. So we don't.
Yeah.
So then it's just Gamora. We don't know.
Yeah. So Gamora, we don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, the possibilities after Endgame are really like. I mean, I wouldn't say endless, but there are a lot of things that they tried to set up.
We're
Like-
curious about Phase 4 and excited to see what
absolutely,
direction they
because
go.
I would say the first thing I really kind of want to discuss is Hawkeye's daughter potentially becoming the new Hawkeye, because you see her training to use a bow in the first few
and I
minutes.
think he
of the,
calls her Hawkeye.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. So maybe, I mean, so that might be a thing.
Yeah.
So I think, and I don't know, I would say, for me personally, I mean, Doctor Strange is definitely going to travel the multiverse.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, that's how they're probably going to set up the connection with Deadpool and the X-Men and even the Fantastic
I
Four.
love Doctor Strange. I
Yeah.
just love his character.
Yeah.
I think Benedict Cumberbatch
Yeah, here's the
does
thing
an
though. I
amazing
don't
job.
think they're going to do it in the next Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah.
I think they might wait for like maybe the first Fantastic Four movie or maybe
Right.
Doctor Strange 3 to do that.
Yeah.
To kind of set that up. And maybe have like the X-Men and Fantastic Four like in like Phase 5 maybe.
Okay.
I think Red Skull has been freed.
From his post.
Yeah,
As the Soul
as the
Stone.
guardian of the Soul Stone, which means he can go wherever he wants.
Okay.
And I think he may become a potential Captain Marvel villain in future movies. So I'm just gonna lay that out there.
Yeah.
I think another thing that I would like to see, though it may not necessarily happen, is have Iron Man's daughter become Ironheart.
Yep.
But I would probably wait for that till I would say that's probably like Phase 5.
Yeah, I think because Iron Man was such
Yeah.
a torchbearer, through the first 22 films,
Yeah.
I think they're probably going to cool off on the Iron Man
For a while,
storyline. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's definitely, I think,
I mean, it's definitely a possibility.
I think because they
Because you
gave
see
Tony
her wearing the helmet.
they gave Tony a daughter.
Yeah.
Morgan wore the helmet in the movie.
Yeah.
They're not going to let that go to waste.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
not.
don't think.
So for me, I would say probably the last big thing that I really kind of want to discuss is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have to keep in mind, with the end credit scene at Spider-Man: Homecoming, you see the Vulture meet up with the Scorpion, aka Mac Gargan.
Yeah.
So they're setting up the Sinister Six.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna have. I mean, I think right now the current roster for the Sinister Six is probably gonna be, as far as we know, the Scorpion, Vulture, Mysterio, and maybe one of the Elementals.
Okay.
Which, I mean, they've already shown Hydro Man, so maybe that might be him.
One other thing that we didn't touch on that I was just thinking of in that Ironheart conversation that I think the fans loved was in the final battle scene.
Yeah, Pepper Potts had her own armor.
Well, it was Pepper Potts.
Yeah.
It was they brought in Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
They brought in Gamora. They brought in basically all the female Avengers. We didn't even talk about what's her name, Wanda.
Yeah. Wanda was pretty badass.
Yeah,
she held her own against Thanos for a while.
Yeah, they had a pretty badass all-female, all these kind of powerful female characters coming together and
fighting
led by
Thanos.
Captain Marvel, who
Who fight Thanos during that massive battle.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
So there's just so many different directions they can go in Phase 4. I think
because they're probably gonna do the Eternals. They're probably gonna do Shang-Chi. They're definitely gonna do like a prequel Black Widow movie, from what I've heard. But other than that, we don't know.
yeah, which is part of the fun.
Which really is part of the fun, not just for us trying to speculate, but also for just Marvel Studios
yeah,
having fun with the marketing campaign for everything else.
yeah. So let us know what you think. That's kind of our summary. Let us know what you think is coming in Phase 4. Let us know if you like some of our ideas on possible, possible stories after Endgame.
Yeah.
If you haven't gone out and seen the movie yet, well, we just gave you a nice summary, but
Yeah.
go see it. You will not be disappointed.
You will not be disappointed at all.
And I think even for the casual fan, in a standalone film,
It's still
it's
great.
awesome. I mean, there's so much action, and it's sweeter for us because I think we can appreciate the character development and just the
That has
closing.
happened over the past 11 years.
But as a standalone film,
It still works.
A+.
Yeah.
So
A+, easy, no question about it.
anything else?
Nope, I think I'm good.
All right, Night Brothers commentary. We're out. Thanks.